If you're not aware, Urals have a reputation for the right side ECU going bad. That is valid, I believe, from the 2014 models all the way up to 2018. The right side ECU will just stop working. We had that issue on this one. We were riding, it was raining. At the time, I knew nothing about the susceptibility of the right side ECU to water, and it, of course, quit working. We had to have a truck come down and pick us up and haul it back. We had the right side ECU replaced, and I don't want that to happen again. Apparently, there's a little barometric sensor on the side of the ECU, and refer to the documentation that Ural sent here. This is the ECU, the black part. That snorkel is what we'll be installing. And this shows the port where the barometric pressure sensor is located. You can feel it with your finger if you reach down there. And these snorkels snap onto that, and they can turn. You'll need to position it as you glue it in, and the instructions say to use either 3M or Loctite plastic adhesive. This is the best I could come up with. Even called the dealer and asked, and he said he just used super glue. So this, I got gel because I don't want it to just run all over the place. This was also the slower drying. I wanted to have some time to, if I get this wrong, to snatch it back off. And I'm talking 10 seconds, not 30 minutes or something. I didn't want instant grab super glue that after 2 seconds it's over. And it says most plastics. Everything I found said most plastics. So I'm going to have to assume this is most. The ECU, this can be done with the ECU on the bike. But I will go ahead and tell you that if, perchance, you have a reason to take your ECU off, it is easier on a benchtop to do this than doing it on the rig. But certainly, by no means impossible. Essentially, the instructions that I have here, you apply a little bit of the adhesive on the snorkel and you push it into place. One thing I'd highly recommend doing, this does tell you to clean the port, use contact cleaner or isopropyl alcohol. Don't use anything aggressive like something that would eat into the plastic. Like you certainly don't want to use acetone or something like that. But just clean the dirt and the debris off of it. Also clean the snorkel. Just make sure there's no fingers or anything that left oil there. You don't want anything that'll interfere with the bond. And I highly recommend that you test fit it several times. Find the most comfortable position to be in to snap it into place right the first time. You'll feel it snap in, and you'll need to have it in the right orientation. So lean over the top of the bike, lay on the ground, jack the bike up, whatever it is you need to do to be able to get your hand in there and push and have your hands in the right place, and practice that several times before you actually apply glue to it. Okay, let me see if I can summarize this real quick. Part number, I really don't know. On the paper, it says 56313. On the little plastic bags, it looks like it says WC 4840 and WC 4839. So part numbers. Anyway, what you need are the ECU Snorkels for the Electro Jet ECUs. This is the hole that you're trying to cover up. If you feel back there, you'll feel kind of this circle with little dimples around it. That's what the snaps fit onto. And it doesn't really snap, it just pressure fits in. I found this glue to this point, hadn't ridden with them, they hadn't fallen off yet. But so far as it being gel control, that was great. It didn't run anywhere. It stayed right where I put it, no matter how I messed with it. It was very easy to open and use. It was very controllable squeezing the sides here. This did really well so far as an applicator goes, and this is the Loctite Super Glue Ultra Gel Control. That's what I used. Not endorsing it, I'm just saying that's what I used. When I installed, I found this angle, and this may be an optical illusion, Maybe if I took the ECU off right now and threw it down in front of me, this angle would be accurate. But from what I can tell, my actual angle of install is more like this. Maybe not that straight, but it was further this way. And if I kept pressure on it and pushed it with my other finger till it fell back in and locked in place, it was back here. And on the CT, I found if I revved the throttle all the way up, the very end of this was bumping the end of the snorkel. I don't know why it would be different on the M70. The M70, now granted it wasn't much, I'm talking a 1/16 of an inch or less clearance, but the M70 didn't hit, but the CT did. That could just be cable adjustment, I don't know. But I didn't want it to actually hit it. But that is roughly the position that I put it on. On the outboard ECU, the outboard ECU, I put the angle, because it's turned over, this hole is down here, and I actually did the angle this way. So that hole will be kind of down here on the left outboard. I turned it this way so that my foot will hit here before it hits here. And I didn't want to bring it level. I could have gotten it in this other position, but it was kind of downhill, and I didn't want water to run in. So I chose this position to do it. Glued it on there. It says allow adequate drying time. I'm going to let it dry overnight. I know that super glue doesn't take that long to cure completely, but I'm going to do it. And that way there's no vibration, there's no heat, there's nothing going on. It will be at least 12 to 16 hours before I crank these bikes up and do anything with them. Well, this is the position that I found best for me. I actually put my foot here. I'm standing between the bike and the sidecar. And that lets me get my left hand in here, my right hand over here, kind of to help me position and snap the snorkel in place. Now, one thing I've discovered, I can't get the position in the drawing. The ridges along here line up in this position, and then if I turn it to get an angle, the snorkel is actually right on the edge of the mechanism. It's actually touching the mechanism right there. So my angle choices are this one, which is not quite straight down, but kind of in that direction, or I can turn it facing backwards, and it's so far off that it's right there. And I'm going to try to position it again to see if it's touching, but my inclination is to put it on like you see it here. And I believe this is the position. I'm going to put the left side on, because that should stay. If my foot comes up here and tries to hit, as long as I don't put my foot in the gap, which I shouldn't be able to do that easily, then the throttle body housing should protect it. If I turn it facing straight down, then it's below here and exposed, and I'm sure I will kick it. And if I put it up any further, it actually ends up sloping forward slightly, not much, that way. So if any water got in it, it would actually funnel it in. So that's the position that I'm going to be doing on the left side. Now this is my M70, and I'm getting ready to put the snorkel on it. I found the CT wasn't this way, so I found a zip tie here holding the temperature sensor on the bottom and also holding in the wire for the injector plug against the throttle body, and that's fine. But if I left them in that position and I put the snorkel on, it would trap those wires between the throttle body and the snorkel, and I don't want to do that. So I've taken the zip tie off. I'm going to put the snorkel on, and just like on the CT, I don't know why I have to necessarily put that zip tie back. It seems fine and can't get to anything, but I will come up with a way to re-zip tie it out of the way if I need to. But yeah, I didn't want to leave that zip tie on, just put that snorkel on, and then end up with a problem later if I needed to swap an injector or a temperature sensor. So ultimately I chose this position. The throttle body is still at a bit of an angle, though it's not as much of an angle as the picture implies. There is a slight angle here, but the real reason I finally chose this position, when I pushed, this is on the CT, when I pushed this in, got it in place on the CT, the throttle roll was actually a tad more, a little bit different than the M70. And the throttle roll was actually coming up and bumping into the end of the snorkel, and I didn't want it to do that. So I've gone with this. It's hard to tell through the camera, but there is a bit of an angle on this. It is swept backwards a little bit, maybe not as much as I think it should, but at the same time this should do, because any air coming up, this tube's going to pressurize and resist anything else coming in it pretty quick. So hopefully this will be good and it'll solve the problem. So I'm going to finish gluing these on, and don't do what I did and forget which one you've glued and which one you haven't, because they're all snapped on all four positions right now on both bikes. But I've only glued 3. And I don't remember which one I didn't glue. So I'm going to have to very carefully wiggle them and hopefully not disturb the glue until one falls off and then glue it. So learn from my mistakes. Remember which ones you glued. Okay, it's on the M70 now, glued in place. And for the M70, I found sitting in the sidecar was actually the best thing to do. I actually crawled in, I sat in the sidecar, I leaned over. I wish I could show you how I did this. Let me see if I can put this on a tripod or something. What I did was I put the glue on. The gel helps tremendously. I hold it back this way. I get it back there and I bring my finger up behind it to hold it like this. Once I do that, I can get back behind it a little bit, guide it into place, even rotate it. Practice this several times to make sure it snaps on when I want it to. Get it in position and then push it on, and then push on the back, count to 10, let go, and do it. Make sure you don't get glue on your fingers. It will stick well. It will stick your fingers to it if you're not careful. So here we go on this one. It's not as difficult on the other one because it's up on the high side. This one's on the low side. So I'm fishing around behind here, getting my finger in, putting it onto the opening, using this finger to kind of rotate it, get it where I need it to be, using my left hand to push it into place. You'll feel it kind of fall in and lock in a position. As you practice, you'll feel it doing that. Then you lock it in and it's in place. So I hope you found that useful. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Try to do more of these, but I did want to get this out there because this is supposed to cure the water intrusion problem on the right-hand ECU. And if you're not familiar with that, I guess I could explain it. The aerodynamics of the bike, if I can get my camera to cooperate here, the front of the bike, there you go. When you're riding down the road, the air goes up under the bike and it creates kind of a vacuum between the sidecar body and the bike. And if you take your glove off, I don't recommend, or if you've got fingerless gloves or something, but anyway, you can actually feel air coming up in that area when you ride. You can feel the air is not behaving in a streamlined fashion. It's actually pulling air into that gap and circulating it around. And the theory is what happens is because of that behavior, when there's moisture, like when it's raining, heavy rain, or especially water off the road, which is what happened to us, when there's moisture, the air draws it up in here and it's getting into that sensor, which this is the left-hand ECU and its position on the bike. And water is getting inside there. And over time, that works in and it causes the ECU to malfunction. And this snorkel is designed to prevent and take care of that so it can't happen again. That's why this is being put on. Well, I generally forget to do this part, but I'll remember it this time. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon if you want to be notified when we put a new video up. Don't do bunches and bunches of videos, but I do videos every now and then. Believe it or not, you're watching one now. The entertainment's free, and I think you firmly get what you pay for. So, yeah, like and subscribe, and have a good day.